Hello guys, in this video we're going to talk about Isaiah 1 through 5, the overview and structure of Isaiah chapters 1 through 5. In the earlier video I told you this is one unit, and I also told you that chapter 6 is about the commissioning of this prophet Isaiah, where he sees this amazing vision of God and he volunteers to be God's servant and prophet and so on. But if you think about it, chapter 6 should have come in chapter 1's place. That commissioning should have come in the beginning of Isaiah, but instead, that calling, the commissioning, is put in chapter 6, in the 6th chapter, and we have this oracle that Isaiah writes about in chapters 1 through 5 in the beginning of the book. Okay, that's the first thing you need to know. If you want to read it historically, chronologically, you need to start with chapter 6 and then come back. But Isaiah intentionally put the calling of his prophetic ministry in chapter 6 on purpose. What's the purpose? The purpose is because he wants to start his book not with his calling, but with an introduction for the whole book. Like how in modern day writers would have this like preface, right, in the beginning of the book that tells you about some main reasons why he's writing this, the major themes, the way he thinks, why he thinks, some major arguments, and so on. Isaiah 1 through 5 is like a preface to the whole book of Isaiah. It hits some major themes that Isaiah is going to develop throughout the rest of the book. And long story short, it's really, he goes back and forth between the two themes of judgment and hope throughout the rest of the book, but also in this chapters 1 through 5. So, how is chapters 1 through 5 structured? 1 through 5 is composed of 3 oracles. Okay, if you sit in one sitting and read it, it's easier to see than when you read it separately. But 1 through 5 is composed of 3 oracles. First one is chapter 1. The second oracle is 2, 3, 4. The third oracle is chapter 5. Okay. Chapter 1 is first oracle. Chapters 2, 3, 4 is the second oracle. Chapter 5 is the third oracle. The first oracle, chapter 1, is the introduction of the book, or introduction to the introduction, by presenting some major themes. We'll talk in details in the video on chapter 1. This is a structure and overview on chapters 1 through 5. So 1 is the intro. Chapters 2 through 4 is in a chiastic structure, meaning the first is about ideal, second is the real, third is the ideal. So chapters 2 through 4, Isaiah starts talking about the ideal situation of Israel. And for example, that famous verse, for from Zion, out of Zion shall go the law, that's the ideal state of Israel. Had Israel been the real Israel that God had intended her to be, that's what it would look like, where nations would flood into Jerusalem and worship God. That's the ideal state. That's beginning of chapter 2. After that, from verse 6 of chapter 2 till 4:1, we have the real. What is the reality? What is the state of Judah like at that time? Not the ideal state, but the real state. And sadly, it's full of idolatry and sin. But the prophet goes back in chapter 4, verse 2 and on, till the end of the chapter, talking about the ideal. In that day, the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious. The fruit of the land shall be the pride and honor of the survivors of Israel, and so on. So it goes back to the ideal state. We call these two, the beginning and the end, here the Zion poems. It's a sandwich structure. Ideal, real, ideal. Chapter 5 is the third oracle. We call this the Song of the Vineyard. It's a very famous song. So whenever I say Song of the Vineyard, it's chapter 5 that I'm talking about. This Song of the Vineyard will appear over and over again throughout the rest of the book of Isaiah. So I want you to be familiar with the term Song of the Vineyard. It's chapter 5. Okay? It talks about the present condition of Israel and its consequences, not the ideal state. Okay? So, once again, overview of chapters 1 through 5. Chapter 1 is the intro to the intro, hitting some major themes. Chapters 2 through 4 is the second oracle in a sandwich format, ideal, real, ideal. Chapter 5 is the Song of the Vineyard, talking about the present condition of Israel. So we have 3 oracles in chapters 1 through 5.